Eureka Springs, said to be one of the most magical and mysterious places in America. Eureka Springs is located in northwest Arkansas. It was founded on July 4th, 1879 by a small group of settlers, one of which was Dr. Alva Jackson.
One day, Dr. Jackson stumbled upon a spring whilst traveling. The natives believed the springs were magical. This was because the chief's daughter suffered with an eye ailment, which was believed to be incurable. The chief was saddened that their princess would suffer such a terrible thing. But when the young girl bathed her eyes in the spring, she soon regained her full sight, as stated by June Westfall in the Eureka Chronicles. With Dr. Jackson's curiosity, he used the spring waters to cure his son, William F. Jackson's eye affection in 1865. This led to Alva starting his own business called Dr. Jackson's Eye Water. He led this business out of a cave he called Dr. Jackson's Cave Hospital, where he would care for local combatants during the Civil War.
Dr. Jackson's business remained local until 1879, when Jackson's friend and hunting partner J.B. Saunders was cured of a terrible disease by a visit to the Basin Spring. This intrigued Saunders and led him to promoting the springs to friends and family throughout the state.
It wasn't until July 4th, 1879, that Saunders officially founded the town as Eureka Springs, Arkansas. At the time, this location was considered a high-class town for the wealthy. As the word spread, it became even more of a tourist spot for the magical springs. As the city grew, so did the tourism. By late 1879, the city's population grew to over 10,000, and it was later declared in 1881 as the city for the first class, and was the fourth largest city in Arkansas. Many rich and wealthy families traveled to see the miraculous springs and Dr. Jackson's findings.
Some of the buildings in Eureka's historic downtown have been standing since the town's founding. Places like the Flatiron Flats were built not long after the official town founding in 1879 and stood in the same spot for many years, along with the town's courthouse and the Basin Spring bathhouse.
The Basin Spring bathhouse became a big tourist attraction over the years. People traveled from all around to bathe in the mystical healing waters of Eureka Springs. As the city grew larger and the population grew, so did the tourist attractions. But during the Great Depression, tourism declined, and places all over Eureka Springs were having to close their doors. Even the famous Crescent Hotel had to be shut down.
Over the years, as the science of medicine grew, so did the suspicion of the spring's medicinal properties, and many people began to think that the spring were a fake, which angered them, and this caused a lot of tourism to be drawn away. But of course, the people of Eureka, being used to all the tourism, thought of new ways to draw people back to Eureka Springs.
Long before the railroad was laid into the Ozark Mountains of Arkansas, Indians and then a few daring pioneers had heard stories of mountain springs that produced waters with miraculous powers. It was said these springs were hidden deep in the forested valleys of western Arkansas. Some were said to be hard to find, but as word of the healing waters spread across our country, visitors began traveling to the Ozarks, coming any way they could. By wagon, on horseback, and they kept coming until by the late 1870s a town was built around one of the miracle springs, and Eureka Springs was born. By the time the railroad was built into Eureka Springs in 1883, as many as 6 trains a day brought visitors here from New York and Chicago to the burgeoning town of 9,000, and they were all looking for help in the healing waters from nearby. Today, things have changed little in Eureka Springs. The wood-burning steam locomotive still chugs up and down the valley, its cars filled with tourists. But the train never leaves the valley these days. Tourists come here now by car, and they come for the charm of this town, not the water. They come for its Victorian, turn-of-the-century style. The first of the famous springs that brought outsiders here back then was located right in the middle of town. Basin Springs still attracts vacationers, but long ago people stopped bathing in its waters. Today it's a place where most everyone can take a break from the daily chores. That is, most everyone. Many of the town's homes and businesses are on the National Register of Historic Places, and they've been restored to reflect life in a bygone era. Spending a few hours in Eureka Springs can take you back a century or more. Just stepping into the lobby of the Bank of Eureka Springs brings back memories of days gone by, even down to the original candlestick telephones that still today work. Bank President John Cross is in the vanguard to keep Eureka Springs looking old.
We want to keep it quaint. We want to keep it, old-fashioned, old style, and everything we do is directed towards that end. We've deliberately kept industry out of here. I'm talking about smokestack industry. People want to boost the economy, and growth is not always progress, and we've recognized that, and we work towards that end.
When a town spends all that energy on restoring the past, it will just naturally attract artisans and artists who appreciate the best. Don Underwood's work can be found all around Eureka Springs, from the Ozark Corinthian columns set in the bank building itself to stonework all over the city. Don migrated from Colorado several years ago. Attracted by the architecture and the great stone nearby, he set up a workshop near town, and today carves everything from delicate statues to railroad.
The debate between the travelers and citizens of Eureka Springs, whether the springs were magical or not. Dr. Alva Jackson is the founder of Eureka Springs and was there from 1856 to the town's founding in 1879. Eureka Springs is a town in northwest Arkansas. Travelers traveled from all over the world just to bathe in the magical springs. When the town figured out that the springs were magic, the town got angry, but there is still a lot of tourism. Today, many buildings, such as what is now known as the Crescent Hotel, the Basin Spring Hotel, and many bars and restaurants, have been in Eureka Springs since the founding. Over time, more hotels, shops, bars, and restaurants were built until Eureka grew to what it is today, a magical, mystical, wonder-filled town. But even today, people still visit what Dr. Jackson and J.B. Saunders left behind.